My W-2 was, I was in the IT world. I'm a propeller head. I'm a computer nerd by trade, by qualification, certification, whatnot. And the biggest thing that got me out of that and started really opening me up to this whole wealth building concept is getting that first deal done. Very first deal that my wife and I did 7-8 years ago, it was a $25,000 purchase. Okay. It was a foreclosure. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. And the fear that I had going into, man, this is all the money that we've got. This is all our savings, right? And what if we buy this thing and we end up going bankrupt? I've learned to trust my gut, number one, like educate yourself, read up, but then it comes down to you got to make the decision. Telling yourself stories, just get that first deal done with an educated risks factor. Risk is not going to go away. It's just, do you know what the risks are and are you willing to accept them?
You're listening to the Gorilla State Investing Podcast. We're not here to bruise your bananas with guru sales pitches, overrated fluff, or any other kind of monkey business. We simply provide the ground-pounding truth about what it takes to be successful in real estate.
All right, Gorillas. Today's guest is Jay Helms, and normally I would tell you where the guest is from, but Jay is pretty much a nomad at this point. Him and his wife and 3 kids travel around the United States in an RV, and they pretty much go to different Airbnbs. They've actually rented their primary residence out as an Airbnb and kind of adapted to this nomadic lifestyle that COVID has brought on. But Jay is a partner with W2 Capitalists. He's also the author of Make an Offer. And fun fact about Jay, him and his wife met on a reality TV show in Costa Rica called The Catch, which is based around fishing. So quite an interesting background, Jay. But before we get into diving a little deeper, what I do want to say to my listeners out there, if you haven't done so, if you like or get any value from this podcast today, pay your taxes. Go over to Facebook, join From Middle Class to Millionaire for our Facebook group. We put out motivational, educational stuff daily. Join us and let's get you out of the middle class. Jay, brother, how you doing today?
I'm great. I just noticed I went to pick up my coffee cup and I started shaking a little bit. I was like, all right, wait a minute. I've had a little too much. Let's calm down on the coffee. So I'm going to switch to water, but I'm great, man.
I didn't know there was such a thing as too much coffee, man.
Good. I'm good for like a cup. And I had a jumbo cup this morning because I wanted to be on point with talking to you. And we were talking, this is getting kind of early for me now at 9 a.m. Central, which is kind of weird to say.
Kind of early.
To get up at 4.
That's
so
good, man.
I wanted to make sure I was amped. And so I am to the shaking phase. I'm amped. Let's go.
Well, good. Now that we got you all jazzed up, Jay, what are you doing to get your ass out of the middle class?
I would say the focus for this year is partnerships when it comes to investing and adjusting to what the market's given us. There's a guy who leads one of our mastermind calls, Victor. He's in the mobile home park space. And we were talking to him the other night about, man, how do you underwriting deals these days, where interest rates are going? He said this thing, it's such common sense. And I'm just not, I wasn't thinking about it. He goes, I believe that interest rates are going to go up, right? And by the end of the year, they're going to continue to go up. So if I'm making an offer today, knowing that I'm not going to close on it within three to, months, maybe, that I'm going to go and underwrite it where I think interest rates are going to be. And it's guys like that. Victor and I are partnering on something right now, but it's guys like that I'm surrounding myself with, and we're all just collaborating and pushing ourselves upwards. Because at random times, I'll come in with a really good idea and really good thought that they haven't thought of, and then vice versa, right? But partnerships is really, if I look back on our investing journey when we're trying to do it ourselves, the very slow roll. Right. Yeah. But with partnerships in the last 2-3 years has really put us on a nice trajectory of getting out of the middle class, which is, I don't know if it even exists anymore. If it does, it may not exist in 10 years, I should say, the way
Hey, man, our Facebook
things are
got
going.
a good name. Don't you say anything.
No, I know. I don't want to backtrack from that. It still does exist. But, man, if you're listening to this and you're not convinced that the middle class is trying to be squashed, you're going to end up on one end of it or the other, and you don't want to go down. You just don't.
So me and Jay had a great laugh before I started the episode because he had a Facebook post That was kind of him looking out into a lake, drinking coffee. And the words that came up says, when your passive income outpaces your W-2 income. And then when talking to him, he said that he had started this nomadic lifestyle because he'd been laid off due to COVID. And I said, hey, is that because you got laid off now? All your rental income outpasses it? And the answer is no. So you had a W-2 for a long time, I'm guessing, right? 6-figure income, but you're able to find the time, call it a real estate side hustle, to be able to surpass your regular W-2 income. Take me back to where you got started with that W-2, because most of our listeners currently have a W-2 and they're looking for a way to get out of the middle class via passive income. How did you do it?
So my W-2 was, I was in the IT world. I'm a propeller head. I'm a computer nerd by trade, by qualification, certification, whatnot. And the biggest thing that got me out of that and started really opening me up to this whole wealth building, concept is getting that first deal done. Right. And getting that very first deal done. I was talking to a guy, Robert Leonard. I don't know if you know Robert or not, but asking him, hey, what does it take to get your first deal done? Because I don't know, but at whatever cost, you just need to get the first one done. I'm like, well, maybe not at whatever cost, but put some education around it and make sure that you're not just going in and blindly throwing money at a deal. But I look back at, very first deal that my wife and I did 7-8 years ago. And it was a $25,000 purchase. Okay. It was a foreclosure. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. And the fear that I had going into, man, this is all the money that we've got. This is all our savings, right? And what if we buy this thing and we end up going bankrupt, until today, right? So 2 weeks ago, I wired $25,000 to invest in a syndication. I'm about the thing I'm doing with Victor, we're talking about earlier. I'm about to go sign some paperwork with a notary and wire him some money, another $25,000. And that's about a third of our investing budget that we're going to do this year. And I don't have the same fears as that. Like if these things, like I understand the risk now, right? We're very well educated in that. And there's some other multifamily stuff that we're looking at the remainder of this year, but it's getting over that fear. Like, I've learned to trust my gut. Number one, don't like educate yourself, read up, but then it comes down to, you got to make the decision, right? And what's your gut telling you? And there's a lot of, neurological sciences that said there's millions, if not billions of connections between your gut and your brain. So the whole thing of listening to your gut is actually like subconsciously there's some stuff going on there and you should do that. I don't know that my gut's ever let me down, as far as doing that. And what I've realized is when I get that fear thing in my belly, what I've labeled as fear, it's usually saying, hey, this is what you need to do next. Right. And just accepting that that's not fear, that is actually where you need to go next. And it goes back to, I've done a lot of research and study on the croc brain and all the, there's tons of resources out there of how our brain actually works. And I kind of started tapping into that and kind of believing what these authors were saying about it. And I'm like, all right, let me try this a couple of times. And the more I've done it, the more it's like just the momentum keeps going. So going back to that very first deal, it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. On the edge of the hood, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. We're about to be new parents. Am I going to get shot, over here working on stuff and being the maintenance guy? What kind of tenant are we going to get? All those fears, all those stories that I was telling myself, none of that came true. Like none of it. Like we had an amazing tenant. We never really had an issue with the house, with the neighborhood. Matter of fact, the dilapidated shack across the street, a developer came in and bulldozed it down and built a brand new house, which just did nothing but improve the value of the neighborhood. Yeah. Like all these things started happening. I'm like, all right, so what was I so worried about? Well, I was worried about the stories that I was telling myself. So get out of my own head, get out of my own way is kind of the message, right? Is stop telling yourself stories. Just get that first deal done with an educated risks factor. Risk is not going to go away. It's just, do you know what the risks are, and are you willing to accept them? Right.
And I think the riskiest thing that you can do is nothing.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's if just imagine had you not got started in real estate, and then COVID rolls around, you get laid off your full-time job, you would have had nothing. You'd have had to likely taken a lesser paying job at probably a job you were overqualified to do, move to a place you didn't want to go. Like think of all the different scenarios that could have gone even worse than the ones that had you just done nothing. Right. Yeah. So I think that I live by that. Is like, I'm in the military, I'm in special operations, and we get talked a lot about, fear, overcoming fear. And there's this thing that we get diagnosed with called optimism bias. And I have kind of the opposite end of the spectrum from when I first got started, which I have this almost biased belief that everything's just going to be okay. It's like the people. When I have
a partner like that, by the way. Like, we're a good yin and yang sometimes.
We'll be fine. It's good. Blah, blah, blah. Right. But I think either side of the spectrum, you have to have just enough education to make the first step.
Yeah.
Right. People. And I was on a mastermind call the other day where somebody had introduced themselves like, I'm here looking to learn. And the person leading the mastermind says, you're not learning anymore. We're doing today. And I thought that was such a great concept. It's like, if you're already here on this call, you've learned enough to get going. And you have a group inside this call to help you get moving. So just take the first step and get it going. Now, you don't want to be cavalier and just go throw money at something. In fact, every time I've lost money, it's because I jumped into something I had no clue what I was doing. I entered a new market. I didn't know what was going on, or I invested in Bitcoin when I didn't know what the hell it was. Right. I mean, but I take small steps towards it to get a little bit of education. I call that my tuition. And now as far as Bitcoin goes, I know I don't want to invest in Bitcoin anymore. That's kind of what I learned. But yeah, for sure. So where did you go from there? You had your one deal, small $25,000 deal. Kind of give me the synopsis of where you went from there and where you're at today.
Yeah. So I still, the mindset, right? This is eight years ago, is that I've got to do this with all of my own money, and I've got to do it just by myself, my wife and I. So we took the next year trying to figure out where we're going to come up with more money to buy. I mean, we were living paycheck to paycheck as it was, and to buy our next one. Right. So we took about a year, maybe a little bit longer than a year. And then we bought, our next investment property, which is exactly what you just mentioned. I saw it was a couple mobile homes. I didn't know anything about the neighborhood, didn't know anything about the asset, type or whatnot. I saw, hey, it's a cheap price here, what rents are supposed to be. And I dove in. Right. And, one of the biggest mistakes I've made investing was doing exactly that, because of what you just said. I didn't know anything. I thought, hey man, this is cheap. We can afford it. Let's do it. We held on to those for about 3 years and ended up essentially dispositioning them at the tune of a $10,000 loss after all was said and done. So where we're at today, I've do a little bit of everything today. I've GP'd, LP, and JV'd multifamilies. I do some note investing. We've got our primary house has been converted to an Airbnb. What else? I've done some private money lending. So I'm kind of all over the board. Our portfolio, I think it's funny when folks come on and say, yeah, I've got 1,500 units in my portfolio. I'm like, do you, or do you have like 1% of the 1,500, so, and I filled out a questionnaire for another podcast, and they're like, how many units are you part of? And I was like, this is not relevant. Doesn't matter. Like I can tell you my experience. If you want to know, the number has been multiple hundreds, but today it's like 100 and something. And I'm like, but the fact is we're sitting on a bunch of cash because we were taking advantage of what the market's been doing. And that's never really part of the entire story. So, right now we do a little bit of everything. I've learned in this nomadic lifestyle in the last year, I have grown more personally, in the last year, because it's challenging with 3 kids and doing what we're doing. But, then I want to be more passive than anything. I want to be more passive. So that's we're looking at note investing pretty hard. Matter of fact, we're about to close on our second just note straight up purchase. And then our goal that we've kind of discovered or over the last year is we really like certain areas of the Southeast that actually I should say the US. And so we, as a family, we want to have 2 or 3 Airbnbs or short-term rentals, right? And the thought of it is that we're going to live in those once during the off season of wherever they are, right? So if we get a place in Vermont or Maine, don't be surprised, because we absolutely loved it when we went up there last summer. And, but a lot of people like to go up there and go snow skiing and playing in the snow. We're not big snow fans. We don't like it, so I could see, in the next couple of years, our summers are spent in the Northeast. Our winters are spent probably in Eastern Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. And then we'll have to see about the summer, because our house in Florida stays pretty booked, and it does really, really well as a short-term rental there. So that's kind of where we're at today, but we're always looking. Like last Friday, I was on a call. There's a guy in the mastermind presenting a multifamily deal that I'll probably invest in, and always looking to add to the portfolio with, I get asked this a lot, is how do you evaluate markets and how do you evaluate deals? And the transparent answer is I don't put a lot of work into it. I see who's representing the deal, how comfortable am I with them? And if I'm comfortable with them and I know just enough, like I know more about the person than I know more about the deal, right? Yeah. And as long as I'm okay with them, then I'm more than likely going to invest.
It's trust, right? Everything's kind of hinge point on trust. So how do you, whenever you have a new general partnership pitching you a deal as an LP, like you're looking at through the lens of an LP,
right? What's
the best way that general partnership can build trust with you?
Come talk to me about 6 months before you have a deal and create a relationship. I there's one rule that I've had for the longest time is I don't invest with anybody that I don't know for at least 6 months. And it's not, we have a conversation today, in 6 months we have another conversation and that covers the 6. That's not what I'm talking about. There's gotta be more than that. And that's the minimum requirement right now. I recently entered a partnership, backed out of the partnership after I saw things were going, and just want to make sure everybody knows that's okay to do, right? If your gut starts telling you, hey, this is not a good thing, back out of it. And I kind of went back and did a postmortem of what happened there. And, one of the main partners of the deal, I just got to looking at his past relationships, right? And so I've added a couple of criteria to my list. Like if a GP has been divorced a couple of times, chances are, they don't know how to handle relationships. If they have a history of other partners having issues with them to the point where they're entering legal action against each other, chances are there's relationship issues that are going to go on. And that's just something, I'm being extremely picky, right? And that's just something I've added to my criteria as far as potential partners. Looking at who they are as a person more so than what the deal looks like. Right. Cause I honestly, I hate saying honestly, transparently, I can throw a rock and hit probably 15 different syndicators.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, they're everywhere. I had lunch with a couple of mastermind members, earlier. What day is it? Earlier this week. And one of the guys said, it's funny. The only people I talk to right now, or everywhere I look, there's nothing but real estate investors. I was like, well, that's part of the plan, right? Is now you're surrounding yourself with investors. Yeah. He goes, yeah, but I feel like I'm competing with the same deals. It's like, well, have you ever talked about partnering with these folks? And I was, no, I really haven't, blah, blah, blah. So, the point of that being, the more you surround yourself with real estate investors, the more you're going to see. I kind of feel like everybody I bump into is in real estate investing, is in multifamily, right? Or mobile home parks or whatever. Like note investing is my new shiny object. Once I get into that, I'm going to find out there's this whole world of note investors, and I'm going to feel like, well, it's oversaturated. I don't want to be in this space anymore eventually. But the fact of the matter is that these worlds exist. And as long as you're surrounding yourself with those people, you're going to be introduced to more and more people who are doing the exact same thing. And that is the point, right? And you're eventually going to find some partners that can really help you build your wealth, and you can really help them build their wealth.
I don't even know probably 80% of the people in my Facebook circles anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's become my LinkedIn at this point. Like I'm in all the multifamily groups and stuff. And like a lot of the people, it is cool when you do go to a conference or something like that. You see people and you're like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah. Well, let me look you up. And you look on Facebook and you're already friends. It's like, that happened, man. Like Facebook used to be, if you was my friend, like I knew you. I went to high school.
I knew you.
I was a third with you. I knew everything about you. Now it's like Facebook's like the minimum. Yeah, that's cool, man. So, and I'm the same way. Whenever we got started in syndications, and first of all, disclaimer, I do not like doing syndications. Syndications is a tool to purchase larger property. So let me clear that out. If syndication is not like a way of life or a lifestyle, or it's not even a real estate model, it's a capital raising model. So you essentially,
for some people, it is a lifestyle though.
Well, I mean, they're looking at it just because they want unit count, right?
Yeah.
Those are the folks that are chasing unit count, and
or the acquisition fee, because that's what they live off of.
Well, essentially, it's still capital raising model. So all a syndication is you can syndicate a movie, you can syndicate a book, you can syndicate a casino, you can syndicate anything. All it is pulling money together to buy something that you can't afford yourself and allowing investors to get involved with it. I like real estate. Syndication was a way for me to up the game in real estate and get me in seats at the larger tables and to understand how things work. But my goal is not to syndicate forever. I want to syndicate until I don't have to. I much prefer the joint venture model. I much prefer doing it myself. But one thing syndications does allow you to do is assemble a team on a win-win situation to where you don't have to do all of the things. And I don't like whenever I was purchasing properties by myself, I was the property manager. I was the maintenance guy. I was everything. And doing syndications allowed me to get into the game where the real estate was big enough to remove myself from some of those lines of responsibilities. And that to me was what the most appealing thing was for syndications. And on top of that, when I ran out of money, much like you did, like I invested all of my money and now I've got opportunities that I can't afford to do myself. So I got to pull in some money, and then you start to grow partnerships. Well, you can start with partnerships. And that's why there's a lot of syndicators in the space, is because they don't have a lot of money of their own. They need to partner with people who do have money, and syndications is a tool to do so. So I want to be at a stage, and that's the end goal, where I don't need to raise money. I got all the money, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Do something to get there. No one's giving away free money. So that is kind of my goal there. Yeah, well, except for the government.
Watch out, rabbit hole.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So, all right, brother. So let's talk about your book, Make an Offer. I have not read it, but I'm collecting signed copies of books. I'm looking up on my desk and I'm up to about six signed copies of books now. And that's within the last year. I've never had a book signed by anybody, but since I really started getting into this stuff, people send me signed books. I got 6 now, but I want one from you, brother.
You got it. It's coming your way.
But tell me about it. What is the concept of Make an Offer?
It is basically kind of what we talked about earlier, is get out of your own way. You know, analysis paralysis affects all of us. It affects, even me today when we're transitioning into a different asset type. And that's one thing I love about real estate, right? Is we started with single family. We felt kind of pressure points, couldn't find any kind of deal that really met our criteria, wouldn't allow us to grow as fast as we could. So then we started looking at multifamily, right? And being a syndicator and joint venture partner and whatnot. And so the premise of the book is really geared toward beginner investors who have never done a deal before and they can't get out of their own way. And at the end of each chapter, it's a parable. It's a parable story. A lot of the names have been changed to protect the innocent, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but at the end of each chapter are some very actionable. Going back to your comment earlier that you heard at the mastermind was you're not here to learn, you're here to do, right? So at the end of each chapter, there are steps for the reader to take to get them to close on their first deal. Right. It's a very short book. It just came out on Audible a couple of days ago, and the timestamp on it was 2 hours and 52 minutes. So it's a very, very quick read. And it's basically geared toward somebody who's done anywhere from 0 to 3 deals, and you're really nervous about getting your next. And it's just really, I've had some folks in my mastermind who did me a solid and downloaded the book and went and left me a review on Amazon, came back to me and said, I really enjoyed it. Like it really kicked me in the butt, right? To go ahead and to start taking some action steps. So that's it. It's really geared toward that beginner investor wanting to get their first deal done, but can't find the courage to take that next step.
That's good, man. I'm gonna listen to it. I'll start listening to it on my way into work. That's kind of my hopefully that'll end one day.
But you're making the most of it right now, right? Hey, I was an Audible junkie, and I still find time to listen to books, but that was my commute, man. It was podcast and audio books. And when I got laid off, that just went plummeted. And now I have to find time around, when the kids are not screaming and yelling, and go for a walk for my mental health reasons. But when I'm doing the walk, I'm just listening to audiobooks.
So I do want to dive into your current lifestyle. Because I think there's a lot of people who desire that. And you're at a good time where your kids are young. And I imagine you guys are turning moments into memories on a daily basis, just having new things and fun stuff to check out. Explain what it is you're doing and how people, even if they do have a W-2, they can work remotely or something, can do this.
So, nobody's really ever asked me that. We don't really have it figured out, by the way. we're getting there, but so I got laid off in May of 2020, May 1st, matter of fact. I think 5 minutes after I told my wife about the phone call I had with my boss, she said, "Great, now we can travel." Right. And I'm like, wait a minute, my world just got rocked. Like, let's just slow down for a minute. But a year later, she had worked on me enough, and I finally got to understand, okay, yeah, we do need to do this while our kids are young, because when they become teenagers, they're not going to be around mom and dad, So we took off, and we had no idea what we were doing. We bought a utility trailer because of the way we travel, we pack more than what we need. Just, and we did it that way for the first 3 or 4 months. And I did not like that, because we were hopping from Airbnb to hotel and staying with friends and family. And quite frankly, we didn't know, like today's Thursday, we didn't know where we were going to be staying next Thursday. Oof. Right. Yeah. And I absolutely hated that. Well, fast forward to this year, like we've got through the end of, at least through the end of August, already booked. I think there's a week around July 4th that we don't know yet, which is coming up fast. But as I was walking up here to get ready to talk to you, she goes, I think I found us a place. I want you to check it out. So, okay, here, let's just book it, whatever. But it's one of those things where when we first started this, we're okay, we're going to put our house up as an Airbnb. We feel like it's going to generate some really good revenue. And as long as it stays rented, we'll go travel. Right. Well, now that's morphed into, we really like this lifestyle. Why can't we just get vacation homes everywhere where we want to visit for an extended period of time? And we'll just hop to those while the other ones are being booked. Right. And that's kind of the premise. Now, there's a lot of gray area there. Like, what happens if they all get booked up? Because I'm like the money guy. I'm truly passionate about making sure we leave some generational wealth for our kids, and it's going to be through real estate investing and some other investing opportunities, like with bank on yourself, whole life insurance policies and whatnot. But we're trying to figure it out. I think the best thing is, one of the things that we come into play, and when I my wife, I've now removed myself from saying I want to go anywhere, book anything. I give a region, and I have 2 requirements. It's got to be under this amount of dollars because this is our budget. And it's got to have a solid internet connection. Right. Yeah. So 2 questions that we go and ask folks is, number 1, what's your internet like? Is it satellite internet? If it's satellite internet, the conversation stopped there because it's just not good. Also, I bought a T-Mobile hotspot. It's the best thing in the world. They call it home internet for whatever reason. We can be zooming on that like you and I, like I'm having a mastermind call like you and I are talking right now. The kids can be streaming 2 different TVs through, Prime Video or whatever, and there's no hiccups whatsoever. Now, I know it depends on how good T-Mobile services in the area. # not sponsored. I don't know if you are, but I'm not. Maybe we work out a deal with them. But, it's figuring it out. And the thing that has been impressive the most is just seeing how much our kids grow up and how much they experience and how – we stayed in an RV park. We migrated from the utility trailer to an RV, lived in an RV for six months, and 400 square feet with 5 people, 3 kids. It's tight quarters. We got used to it, and then we started having some trouble with our RV. Got to doing some inspection. Whole nother story there. We had to sell off the RV due to some frame issues that were not disclosed or found in the pre-purchase inspection. And now we're back to hitting Airbnbs. So here's one of the things that we do that a lot of people don't know, but if you see a short-term rental, we always negotiate. We will contact a host and say, hey, we're looking to stay for X number of weeks in this area. See your place. We see you have it listed for X amount of dollars per night. Would you consider, this amount, right? And to hit our budget, their place is not booked, and you can see if it's booked out or whatnot. And we typically look for the places that have the really good ratings and don't have a lot of bookings, and that really helps out, right? And so if you're looking at this lifestyle, number 1. One of my minimum requirements is we got to stay somewhere for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So just to kind of get settled, because we're still running a business, right? we still got rental properties. Matter of fact, when I hang up with you, I've got to, I'm interviewing property managers. We have an issue with, I don't know if you have a good way of identifying property managers or keeping them in line, but we've got one now that he just needs to go. And so I struggle with that. As a matter of fact, we'll probably take it in house, and probably something me and one other partner will take on because it's a joint venture deal. Find out what's important to you, where you want to go, plan to stay for a while. I was introduced to the phrase slow travel. Never heard that before, because when we got in the RV and when we first started last year, my mentality was, hey, we're on vacation, right? Yeah. And when you're on vacation, you have that weekend or you have that long week or whatnot, and you think, man, we're on vacation, we're here, we got to jam pack as much experiences as we can in this short amount of time, right? Yeah. Well, not only does that get really expensive, when we were in New York last summer, we were spending $400 and something a day. And I'm like, we can't sustain this. Like, I don't want to sustain this. And so, back to our budget conversation, we've learned a lot, but it's basically start slow travel. Everybody does it. Even if you hear this, you're probably going to do the exact same thing as we did, because we had people who kind of started this lifestyle, and they said, look, don't feel like you've got to go anywhere anytime soon. Like, it's just take your time, experience where you're at. Don't be in a rush. And what do? We got in a rush. We wanted to experience it all, and it was not. And so we found that a month time is kind of optimal, right? We get in, especially with the kids and homeschooling the kids and whatnot. A month time is enough for us to experience what we want to experience, not be stressed out, and just live. I mean, it's incredible. It's a lot different.
So I have this concept that me and my team, we're going after RV parks, boutique motels, places in travel dependent areas. And people ask me, well, how do you analyze a market? Because when you're looking at multifamily, you're looking at population growth, median household income, right, crime rate, all this stuff. Where these little towns, the the data is kind of obsolete because it's just not enough. I mean, one crime can spike the crime rate in that area. Some kid under 18 gets a tattoo or something that throws the numbers off.
Yeah.
But reality is, I ask myself, because every time I live in San Diego. Every time I leave San Diego and I go to a small town, lake, stream, waterfall, hiking, all the things that I love, which is nature, right? The night before I leave, me and my wife will be sitting down having tea or whatever. And I always say the same phrase to myself, like, why am I leaving this place? Why am I leaving the place that I escaped all my problems to get to, just to rush back to them? And the reality of it is because that's where the job is. That's where I've got it's the town has the hooks in me. For me, it's the military. I've got duty to get back to. But it sounds like for you, whenever you got laid off, which everybody, that phrase has got some stink on it. Your wife had been waiting and being like,
she was a sniper, man. She was waiting for me to poke my head out.
We don't have to leave this place anymore. And you nailed it, man. The one thing you normally could not get in these small areas was dependable internet. And internet technology has shifted. And now with Elon Musk's, was it Skylink?
Something like that, yeah.
Something coming online. You're going to get dependable internet across the United States, across the world, potentially, as it develops. And it's going to open up a lot of these smaller markets to these remote workers, because the numbers were prior to COVID, it was 6% of the U.S. workforce was able to work remotely. Now it spiked up to 35% last year, and now I think it's expected to stay at 25%. That means 1 in 4 people in the U.S. workforce can do so remotely, right?
Yeah.
Now, those people can collect a big city income, but live in small town USA where they probably want to live anyway. Now, there's a lot of people who are city people. That's what they want, the amenities. But what do? Everybody escapes the big city into a small town. And if you can work remotely, you can stay longer, like you're talking about. I can go stay a whole month until I got to go back to the population centers, right? That is a huge difference in the weekend travelers where they're coming. Now, they might not spend as much money in a saturated amount of time, but they are going to spend the nightly rates to stay there, right? They're going to have to stay somewhere, whether it be they haul their RV, whether it be that they go to stay at a hotel or a motel. And a lot of these little markets don't have big Holiday Inns or Marriott's and stuff like that, because it just they don't have the population or the demand to justify 100 rooms. But there's certainly 10, 20 room motels that are still owned by mom and pop operators that are getting tired of doing it. And that's where that's what we are going after, is the small boutique hotels, motels, and RV parks. And you are kind of like the avatar, the person that I've been telling people about. Like, look, man, there are people that work remotely. Now you're doing yours passive. It's still work. You're able to do it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, definitely in your previous industry, the IT world, able to work remotely. All you need is a computer and connectivity. And if we can provide that to people like yourself, W-2 or not, we've got customers. And the customer base has shifted from somebody who's just trying to get it all in the weekend. I got to get away from the city, man. I got to eat out every night. I want steak. I'm going to do a hike No, these people are just coming out to live, be peaceful for a little while. And you can capture that because there is your customer. So I'm glad we had this conversation, because you are the person that I have been telling people that's coming, the future customer of the small town USA. And the proof is in the pudding. We have a couple small motels that we have one under contract in a small area. I mean, right around it is just you can swim with manatees, you can go to springs, you can river raft, you can do all the things that you want to do.
Clearwater?
No, it's in North Florida, but it's not a place. You wouldn't be able to go to Tallahassee and swim with a manatee, right? You wouldn't or maybe like Chattanooga or something like that. You could do some river rafting, but big cities just don't have these amenities. And if they do, they're overcrowded and you're trying to escape something. Well, the place to escape is a place with low population. And those are the places that I'm actually looking at. 2 years ago, I would have been like, 3,000 people in this town? Hell no, right?
No way.
I ain't gonna invest in no 3,000. But now there's a market for it, and it's shifting.
Yeah.
And you're the proof in the pudding for that proof of concept. So, all right, Jay. So what I'm gonna do now, brother, is gonna ask you the same questions that I ask everybody who comes on the Real Estate Investing podcast. The first question is going to be, what is your definition of success?
Man, my father-in-law asked me this a long time ago, probably when we were my wife and I were first starting dating. And I just spur of the moment, I said, man, it's happiness, right? And it's different for everybody, but I think we can all agree that success breeds happiness, right? So if you're happy, you're successful. Right. We're going to have highs and lows in all facets and chapters of our lives. But I think ultimately when success comes down to it is happy. And there's nothing that's going to make me more. And why I generalize it like that is because happiness to me, previous being a father, was a lot different than being a father today. Right. Like, yesterday, my son and I was teaching him what a trot line is and how to catch catfish and stuff like that. And so, yesterday we put one out and we caught 3 catfish and 1 turtle. Right. And I'm like, and I was like, so let me, and seeing his look on his face, apologize. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday we went and put it out again at his request. Hey, Dad, we're going to go do that thing. I was like, absolutely, we are. I'm stopping what I'm doing right now. We're going to go do it because it's about to start raining. Not as successful as the day before, but that makes me happy. And to me, I feel like I'm being a successful father. And also, I'm a big fan of Ryan Mickler, protect, provide, and preside. And, I feel like I'm providing for my family. I feel like I'm, presiding over them and raising our kids to be the adults we want them to be. And, that is my current definition of success, but I feel like I can generalize it by just saying happiness, right?
Absolutely, man. You're speaking my language. That brings up a story. I like to tell stories, but my dad I grew up in Louisiana, and I remember if you ask one thing that me and my dad did growing up, it was
you do not have the Louisiana accent, by the way.
It's about 17 years of being away. It's it's funny. People in San Diego, the first question they ask me is, "Where am I from?" And I'm like, they pick up on it. But yeah. if somebody asks me like, "What's the memory you remember about your dad?" It would be catfish, trot lining catfish. Like, no really? Kidding. Exactly. And it 100% illegal. I didn't know it at the time, but I remember my dad, he used to wake me up so early. God, it was early because he wanted to do it with me before he went into his job.
Had to go to work.
But
yeah.
I would have to go out to the ditch in the front yard and scoop the ditch with a net and catch crawfish.
Yeah. Crawfish, yeah.
This is how Louisiana I am, dude. We catch the crawfish, and if I couldn't catch crawfish, my dad had this big old bucket of stink cheese, right? that was his back.
You were motivated to catch crawfish because you did not want to mess with that stuff.
100%. And that was kind of the motivation. Like, if I don't catch any damn crawfish, dude, I'm gonna have to be baiting these lines with stink cheese. God damn. But he would pick me up, like 15 minutes doing that. He'd pick me up on the side of the road, and we'd go out, launch the boat, and we would just catfish. And I used to hate it. I used to, God dang, why do I got to get up and do this? But once we were out on the boat and I'd see the water swirling, right? Because as you're pulling the line, you see the water swirling. Oh man, I'd get so excited. And I was the net man. Like, he would pull the line and I would scoop up the cat. We catch 15, 20 catfish sometimes in a morning. And we usually get some eels and some turtles and whatever. I get to play with them. But that memory, now that I'm an adult, that's the main. I hated it as a kid because I had to get up early. But Dad made me do it. But that is the main thing I remember about me and my old man. And now looking back, I remember how I realized it was illegal because we heard a boat coming one day, and my dad had this little hook, and he would hook the line and let it go down in the water, and he would pull up a fishing pole and act like he was just fishing. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, I don't want nobody to know my good spots. All right.
Well, there you go. It probably wasn't illegal.
No, it was illegal.
Oh, was it?
I'm pretty sure it was illegal to do. It was all the way across the river. But man, that was such a good memory. And, you know, my dad ran his own business. And, you know, he kind of, I said he owned his own job because he had to be there every day. But the one thing he was able to do is he never missed a baseball game. You know, he never missed a recital. He never missed a graduation or a birthday or anything like that. But he had to get up early and go to his job every single day, and he was happy to do so because he could take his boys catfishing, and that made him happy. He still goes out and fishes today, and I need to get back to that kind of stuff because I don't. There's not a lot of catfishing out in San Diego, but
I bet.
Yeah, man, that's funny. Sorry to interrupt your answer with this.
No, it's good.
I hadn't heard somebody talk about trot lining in a long time. That's good. Yeah, out here in California, man, there's people trot line.
What's that? Well, I went into one of these big box stores in looking for a trot line because we didn't have one, right? And I go up to the lady working there, and it's an outdoor store, right? And I was like, I couldn't find it. It took me felt like forever. So, do y'all have trot line? She goes, a trout line? I was like, no, a trot line. She goes, a trout line? I was like, no, a trot line. I was like, say it without the U. She goes, oh, a trot line. She goes, I don't know what that is. What is that? And this guy, and I stand there dumbfounded because she's in the fishing section. She's stocking shelves, right? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain to you what this is. Like, and mainly because you're in the fishing section and you're stocking shelves. And this guy standing over here says, he's just another patron, right? He's there buying stuff. He goes, it's kind of like a skinny clothesline. He goes, I think they're 2 aisles over.
Perfect.
Thanks, man. Perfect. Appreciate it.
A clothesline for fish.
Yeah.
All right, Jay, next question. What's the biggest mistake you made and what have you learned from it?
Biggest mistake is really, man, do you see how serious I got just then? We went from beating up the lady at the sporting goods store. And man, I got serious real quick. No, the biggest mistake that I've probably made is I tell myself stories that just never come true. And it all comes down from that fear of, hey, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if we go bankrupt? So what if we do go bankrupt? You know, I'm like, to the point, it is what it is. Maybe we made some poor, maybe, you know, sometime in the future, we make a really poor investing decision and we end up there. And, you know, one of the things that I feel like really held us back, and because it took us 6-7 years of investing before we surpassed our W-2 income. Does not align with the layoff, by the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, and it's one of those things where I kind of look back and say, you know, how do folks in the mastermind that I lead, how are they able to do it in 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years? And basically they're not only, I wouldn't say they're willing to take bigger risk. They don't have the fear that I had. Right. And they go and they've done the right thing of surround themselves with like-minded people and people who are a little more experienced than them, and leaning on them and saying, hey, I'm in this situation. Have you ever been able to experience this before? And they're like, yeah, let me tell you what I did. Right. And let me tell you how I handled it. And they have done it exponentially faster, in my opinion. And it's because I don't see them having these fearful, like they rarely show up for the virtual calls and say, oh my gosh, I'm so scared this is going to happen. And if they do, if a new investor does come in and that happens, we set them straight, you know, and that's kind of the biggest thing is stop telling yourself, if you are telling yourself these horror stories of what may happen with a syndication or buying an RV park, then stop wasting resources on telling yourself stories and go talk to people who are in that industry. And I think you're going to find there's two different scenarios there. One, the false idea that you're telling yourself, and two, what actually happens.
I will say this, the fear never goes away. It just, the potential risks just get bigger. Right. And you have to overcome and work through fear. Because like the same feeling I had in my stomach when I did my first deal is the same feeling I have in my stomach when I do every deal. The deals are just bigger and I haven't realized the consequences of the new problem yet. And I call this the comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
If I talk a lot about comfort zone because we had talk a lot about it in the Navy, and every time you do something, well, you're now comfortable with it. So the next thing that you do, if it's the same thing, well, you may see growth on your bottom line, but you're not seeing your personal growth because it's impossible to grow inside your comfort zone, right? And I guess the analogy that I have is what's more important in the gym, right? The first 10 reps where you're refreshed and you're ready and your body's not broken down, or the last 2 to 3 where you really have to push to get those reps, right? Well, those last 2 or 3 is the growth. The first 10 is what it took to get to the edge of your comfort zone. So you're fine with that. That's maintenance. The last 3 is growth. And I try to find properties, any property or anything that I do. If I've done it before, man, I get so bored with it. Like I really, if you look at my breadcrumb trail, none of the properties are exactly the same, or the problems weren't exactly the same. Almost to my detriment, because if I would just stick to one thing, I would probably be able to like make it extremely efficient, dial it in and scale it way past what I'm currently doing. But I just get bored with it. It's not personal growth. If I've done it before, I don't want to do it again. I want to, you know what I mean? Like I want to do it plus, right? So whether it be I've done a renovation or I've bought a 10 unit or whatever it is, the next one needs to be a 10 unit with a renovation. And all these problems, I got to have something that's going to help me grow. And that's kind of how I look at things. It's like, once how can I get my comfort zone to be just a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger? And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. And really your fear right now, something that I observed about you is like, you're the most well-suited to fail exponentially, because what's the worst that could happen? You lose your job. You have to be homeless for a while. You have to travel around the country, finding places to stay, figure out how to live in small confined spaces. That's the worst that could happen. And you're like adapted to this lifestyle. Like you want it. You know what I mean? So,
well, I was totally against it. I fought it for a year and then I finally gave in. And, now it's like the tables have turned. Like I want to go get another RV and let's do that lifestyle some more. And the wife's like, it's tight spaces. And so it's one of the, I think you're right. I don't know that fear goes away. I do think that you learn how to manage it differently. Right. And if you've done it before, I'm constantly challenging my kids to the point where my wife will say it's dangerous. Right. But it's, easy example is I don't know why old people have tall beds. Maybe I'll figure that out when I get older, but we're staying at my parents' house. All their beds are tall, right? I don't know why, but my 3-year-old, she can't get off of them, or she thinks she can't. Right. And so I'm like, figure it out, get down, and the first time she did it, it took her probably 20 minutes of kicking and screaming.
Gross.
but after that, she's done it every time. And so I'm like, all right, so now what are we going to jump off of?
Exactly.
with some parental supervision. But it's I think you just learn to manage it differently.
Yeah. And to me,
the fear,
the word fear and being scared is very close to being hopeful and confident, right? It's just the opposite of the opposite side of the spectrum. You can do something about being fearful. You can push through. Like fear is good. It keeps you grounded. It lets you know. It gives you, like we have a saying in the military, is like fear is what makes you feel alive. Because without fear, like you're constantly searching something to put you on the edge. And if you're just hopeful, that means you're not doing anything about it. But if you're confident, that means that you have hope and you can do something about it. So don't be scared. Have fear, sure, but push through it. But being scared, that's something that's very hard to push through.
Do you think people are addicted to fear?
Adrenaline. Yeah. I think, and I know quite a few adrenaline junkies, and
I'm sure you do.
Like we skydive, we scuba dive, we, have dudes been with them in combat, and,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that you're chasing fear, it's you're chasing the ability to overcome your fears. And
Yeah.
that's such a good feeling. And you can apply that to anything. And some guy, like we talked about, the optimism bias, that's a real thing, that you just think it's going to be okay. And you're searching that edge to where maybe it won't be okay. Maybe I will lose everything. And then when you overcome it, you're like, oh shit, it will be fine.
It will be fine. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I was watching a documentary the other day called The Alpinist, and this guy was like free base climbing. Like free base climbing means no ropes, climbing mountains,
Right.
scaling large mountains with no ropes. And so you talk about the consequences of that being huge. Well, he took it to another level and started free base climbing frozen waterfalls. So like every pick of the axe means that he could have like died. He eventually did die at like 26 years old, but there was something going on with that. He was chasing something. Like everybody called him fearless, and he was. He ended up dying, which sucks. But like that guy had something. He was just a fearless person, like hanging on with an ice pick on the like cliffhanger style wasn't enough. Like,
Yeah.
I was having anxiety just watching him from my bed on the television. And this dude's like hanging on the edge of like a, I don't know, 4,000-foot cliff. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, God, never.
Yeah.
All right, Jay, let's get to the last question I ask everybody. What really bruises your bananas in the world of real estate?
And I'm guilty of this, so I feel like I've got some experience that I can provide to this, but there are way too many opinions out there on everything when real estate related. I got into an online argument with a guy who, he posted something about, the Airbnb or short-term rental market. And I asked him, hey man, tell me about your experience. And he goes, well, I don't have any. I'm like, why do you have an opinion on it? Why are you, and this goes back to, I saw something this morning. What is it? I showed, I reserved. I didn't comment on it, on anything, or I just saw this, and it happens everywhere. And it's becoming commonplace where people will take a subset of data and make it like it is the broad stroke brush of everything that's happening. Right. And the piece of data this morning they showed was the 6 months or, the supply, the amount of new housing development supply for the entire US, right? And it was 6 months. Well, if you believe that 6 months supply means we're in a buyer's market, then that's what they were trying to project, right? Do I feel like we're headed into a buyer's market within the next 6 to 12 months? Absolutely. Right. You can't have interest rates go up. People's buying power is coming down. Prices are going to come down. Things are going to sit on the shelf a little bit longer. But what they were portraying was, here's a broad stroke of the entire US that should fit into your local market. And it's just not the case, and I stopped making, there was a lady in my mastermind one time, and very well off. Her husband does extremely well. And she was in there. She wanted to find properties that they could use. She cared less about cash flow. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, do you invest for appreciation? She goes, I don't care about appreciation. She goes, my husband makes so much money. We've got to figure out how to lose money right now. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, we don't invest for cash flow. We invest for tax flow. Like, we need the write-off. And I was like, my mind blew. Like, I've never heard of this before. How are people not talking about investing for tax flow? And they look for properties that they can buy that they may use every now and then, but for the most part, it's a write-off for them. They need a tax write-off to reduce and they know that if they hold on to it long enough, then they're going to be able to sell it for this huge appreciation, because where they're buying is in these markets that are appreciating really fast. I mean, they're buying Class A assets, and while they may go down over the next couple of years or whatnot, they don't care, because they're going to own them for the long haul. And they just needed a place to put money into that's going to offset their huge tax bill. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I need to stop making predictions about what the market's going to do, what I feel like is going to happen in my area, because I'm guilty of it. I've look and see what's happening in markets we invest in. I'm like, it's not good. This is not good. And then I'm like, why not everybody invest in this market? Nobody's really going to care. And I shouldn't present my opinion as a broad stroke of this is happening everywhere. So that really bruises my bananas when people, when they do that and they feel like they've had some sort of following on social media and makes them authority when, and so the point of me saying that is, if you guys are watching it or listening to this and you see somebody out there and you don't know them, just ask them, hey, tell me about your experience in this, whatever they're talking about. And if they don't have any, then just write them off. Like, this is not somebody's opinion I want to listen to, you know? So that really gets me fired up, gets me jazzed.
The phrase that comes up is look for the vice and advice, right? Because not everybody's advice is applicable to you. Not everybody's advice is applicable to what your definition of success. Like, there's people who glorify the grind and they basically get out there and work all the time to build up your net worth and all that stuff. And when I hear that, I'm like, hell no, dude. I get one chance at this life. I get one chance. Do I work hard? Yeah, I work hard.
Yeah.
But I work hard at my W-2 and I work hard at real estate. And whenever I'm off, I play hard. I play real hard too. Like, you have got to have that balance. And so those types of opinions, I just disregard them because it's not necessarily it's bad information, it's just not applicable to me. And anytime someone takes a broad stroke USA opinion, what they've done is they've read the headline from somebody who basically is an analyst and is just trying to give information that's the tip of the iceberg for what to look for. You have got to be able to dial that down specifically from the macro to the micro, what's applicable to me in the markets that I'm in. And I do think market analysis is extremely important in the large multifamily world where you're buying large chunks of the inventory, because those fluctuations, those small 1% and 2% population fluctuations matter in large markets. But if you're into short-term rentals, well, the population growth of that town's not necessarily that important to you, because nobody coming to your area cares if people are leaving that town to find jobs elsewhere. They're coming to visit, and some of the local amenities that cannot leave, right? Like unless it's like a big city and there's going to be a lot of delinquency in that city and crime rates are going to go up because a major employer has left, that might have an impact on you. But that's more so the amenities of the town, less so the job availability. People that are visiting your town they're not going there to get a job. They're going there to leave a job, to get away from a job. So, like, when people talk about diversity, there's so much diversity within real estate itself. What I lost money in Shreveport, Louisiana, doing multifamily, there was somebody right down the street doing new housing developments, making a lot of money. And where I made money in multifamily, there was fixer and flippers who were getting their asses handed to them because everybody was collapsing out of fix and flips or new homes into apartment complexes. So there is ways to lose money in a good market, and there's ways to make money in a bad market. But if you are in the multifamily space, your chances of losing money in a market are higher if you don't pay attention to what that local market is telling you specifically. So that's my opinion on that. Take it or leave it.
No, it's good. I think real estate is just so local. I mean, you're talking about investing in small towns, and I'm from a small town, and an unpopular podcast that I put out, it was, hey, my hometown is dying. Because you look at the population growth and it is negative, and from the last census, and the two biggest employers, the only two big employers for the city, they both have gone. One left 20 years ago. The other one left, one left about 10 years ago. The other one left about 2 years ago. And you look at the side of town where the one that left 10 years ago, and it's going down, and it's been going down tremendously. And you look at the one that left a few years ago, which is they're on opposite sides of the town, and you can start to see, all right, well, now the Hardee's is gone. Well, now the grocery store is gone. Well, now this is gone, and things of that nature. So but if somebody were to say, man, real estate in Alabama is popping, it absolutely is. In certain markets. Yeah. Right. Mobile, Huntsville, some tertiary markets around those. But where I'm sitting right now, no, it's not. So, you got, it is extremely local. just like people's opinions should be.
Awesome. All right, Jay. Well, if people want to get a hold to you, find out more about you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So they can email me directly. It's jay@w2capitalist.com. It's jay@w2capitalist.com. Or if you want to check out, what we've got going on with the W2 Capitalist, it's w2capitalist.com.
Awesome, man. Cool. So give Jay's book, Make an Offer, a listen on Audible, or you can purchase it on Amazon, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right. Awesome. I look forward to my signed copy as well.
Oh, yeah. I'll need your address. I got a couple laying around here. So
awesome. Thanks, Jay. Guys, look Jay up. Get your ass out of the middle class. Make an offer today. All right. So give him a like, a follow, a share. And if you haven't done so, go on to Facebook and sign up from middle class to millionaire. And look forward to meeting you again and talking again soon, Jay. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ramsey.
Thanks for listening to the Gorilla State Investing Podcast, where we give you the ground-pounding truth about what it takes to be successful in real estate. Learn more at realfocus.org/Gorilla State Pod.